Get behind me so you can get a good look at what I'm pointing at. Tell me action.
Action.
All right, I want to check my alternator to make sure it's properly mounted, not damaged. The wiring is in good condition and it's belt driven. I want to check the water pump to make sure that it is properly mounted, not damaged, not leaking, and it is belt driven. I want to check my coolant container to make sure it's properly mounted, not damaged, not leaking, at the proper fill mark, and I can check with the removing the cap if it's cold. I want to check the exhaust from the front of the engine all the way back here to the back of the muffler to make sure it's properly mounted, not damaged, it's not leaking, and there's no soot trails. Okay? I want to check all of my hoses to make sure they're properly mounted, not damaged, and not leaking. Alrighty, I want to check my oil dipstick to make sure it's properly mounted, not damaged, it's at the proper fill mark, and it's not leaking. I want to check my air compressor to make sure that it's properly mounted, not damaged, not leaking, and it is gear driven. I want to check my power steering fill and pump to make sure that it's properly mounted, not damaged, not leaking, and it is gear driven. I want to check my steering box to make sure that it's properly mounted, not damaged, not leaking, and the hoses are in good condition. I want to check my pitman arm, drag link, steering knuckle, the tie rod, the castle nuts and counter pins to make sure they are properly mounted, not damaged, and there's no missing parts. I want to check my leaf
Stand
spring.
out of here. You have a great weekend, sir. Larry's going to lock up, so all you have to do is leave.
Okay. Thank you, Bob. I'm going to check my leaf spring, make sure it's properly mounted, not damaged. There's no missing or shifted leaves. I want to check the front mount to make sure that it's properly mounted, not damaged. There's no damaged hangers or bushings. I want to check the shock absorber, properly mounted, not damaged, not leaking. I want to check the center mount with the U-bolts to make sure they are properly mounted, not damaged. I want to check the rear spring mount to make sure that it is properly mounted, not damaged. There's also no damaged hanger or bushing there. I want to check my brake hose to make sure it's properly mounted, not damaged, not leaking. I want to check the brake chamber, properly mounted, not damaged, not leaking. I want to check the slack adjuster and the push rod to make sure they are properly mounted, not damaged. There's no more than 1 inch of pull when the brakes are off and the push rod is not bent. I want to check the brake drum and the brake linings to make sure they're properly mounted, not damaged. There's no grease or oil, and they're not worn dangerously thin. I want to check my tire to make sure there's no cuts, no bulges, no tread separation, no uneven wear. I will check the inflation with an air gauge. I will make sure the tread depth is no less than 4/32 of an inch. The valve stem is not missing, damaged, and it must have a cap. I'm going to check my rim to make sure it's properly mounted, not damaged, no welding repair. I want to check my lug nuts to make sure they're properly mounted, not damaged. There's no rust trail, no shiny thread, there's no crack or distortion at the bolt hole, and there's no damaged studs. I want to check the hub seal to make sure it's properly mounted, not damaged, not leaking.